So the next person who I'm going to introduce here today is a guy who, tried to promote blogging as much as he could. He met over 2,000 clients, but unfortunately didn't close even one deal. And but he was trying to promote blogging. He was trying to sell us, in terms of what we can achieve and what we can do. So he's a visionary in that respect. And also, he played Moses in one of the biggest reality shows here, which means he led 16,000 Indians out of Libya through his blog post at Youth Ki Awaaz. So he'll be telling more about the story. So without further ado, please welcome Anshul Tewari.
Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So hello everyone, that was a very kind introduction, and it's amazing to be here amongst fellow bloggers. I'll talk about, the broad theme of my conversation is blog promotion, but I'll talk a lot about my own personal journey with Youth Ki Awaaz, because there's a lot that I think a lot of bloggers will be able to connect with and learn a lot from. So Youth Ki Awaaz, I don't know how many of you have heard of it, how many of you have been there, maybe got a chance to see through it when you saw the IndiBlogger page. Youth Ki Awaaz is India's largest online platform for young people to talk about different issues. That's how we describe it. But at the core of it, it's a community blog. It's a blog where thousands of young people come together to talk about issues that they feel extremely passionate about, that they feel would not get heard in the traditional media space. So it's more like an alternative media platform for young people in India. And it was started in 2008, some 6.5 years ago. So I started Youth Ki Awaaz 6.5 years ago. I remember at that time I was just, about to join college, and I was figuring out what to do with my life. And I was a regular below average student, did not have a lot of options, but I was really addicted to this thing called blogging, which was like a bone of contention in my house. Whenever I would go back home from school, I would just log in and start blogging, and my mom would just freak out because all she would see me do all day long was blog. And I stopped playing, outside, I stopped meeting friends. It was just very irritating for her. But later on, she understood why I was doing what I was doing. So in 2008, when I was about to decide what I wanted to study, I realized that as somebody who's 18, 17, 19, whatever age group you might be in, there are very few spaces where you can really talk freely and openly about things that probably the society does not want you to talk about, or probably a lot of people don't want you to talk about. And amongst those free spaces, internet was one. And if you, further look what one or two spaces exist today, blogging is definitely one of the strongest places where young people can really speak up, write whatever they want, talk about whatever issues they want, and address, multiple issues. A lot of bloggers, a lot of individuals who haven't been bloggers have used the power of blogs to really talk about things that they're passionate about. So similar was my realization in 2008, and I have been blogging since almost 2004. So when I thought that young people don't have a space, blogging came as a very natural reaction. So I started a blog. I called it Youth Ki Awaaz. I remember a late night discussion with my mom about what we should name it, and we came up with the most ridiculous names ever, and finally zeroed down on Youth Ki Awaaz. And I started the blog. Now initially, I'm assuming a lot of us are early stage bloggers, and we really understand the pain of getting readers, right? We all do, right? Raise your hands if you really understand the pain of getting readers. A lot of us do. We don't usually get millions of page views overnight. We probably go online, see these inspirational bloggers from across the world blogging about blogging and how to make money from blogging and how to blog more about blogging. And we just feel like, oh, you know what, I'm going to be this next guy who's blogging about blogging and how to make money from blogging. But what we end up doing is blog for a week and then lose it completely because we're not getting traffic. We're not getting the page views, uniques, whatever you want to call it. So similar was my case. Like I was really irritated. Like I'm talking about these serious issues. Nobody's interested in these serious issues. And it's just so irritating. Why don't people want to read about them? Why don't people want to care about them? So I slowly developed this passion for serious writing that got me to realize that probably one of the good career choices I could make is journalism. And I'll tell you why it was bad, but later. So I took up journalism as, as a career option. I studied journalism in college, and I realized that there are a lot of principles of journalism which could be applied to blogging. Like Amit already said, that the writing style, the way we write blogs, the amount of quality we can bring from journalism to blogging. So whatever I was learning in college, I was bringing it back to my blog. So the way I was writing was really motivated by how I was learning how to report on issues, and how to edit articles, and so on and so forth. And soon enough, I also realized, when I spoke to a lot of my college friends, I realized that the whole idea that young people should not talk about issues, should not question the status quo, is the status quo. It is the stereotype. It is how things are meant to be, and people really believe that this is how things are meant to be. That was a very uncomfortable moment for me. And that's when I got a couple of my college friends involved in the blog as well. So there were about 3-4 of us who had started blogging in 2009, by 2009. And even at that point of time, the traffic was terrible, like really, really bad. And all of us would, know that. So, when we all got together and we thought that, this is not a problem which is unique to just us. It's a problem very common to a lot of young people in India. One of the things that we did was think about how we can use the power of connecting over blogs, over individual blogs, to really improve the quality of conversation that young people are having in the country. And we thought that, a lot of times why young people don't talk about the issues they're passionate about is because they don't know what other people will think. A lot of times why bloggers don't write aggressively or, passionately, or they are a little hesitant of what they're writing, is because they don't know how the audience will respond. They don't know what kind of comments will come in. And when negative comments start coming in, a lot of bloggers do get demotivated, and it's completely fine. So we realized that there's this big, problem. There's a reason why young people aren't connecting on the internet. So what we did was, we thought that we are studying journalism in college. How about we start teaching journalism to people around the country through blogs? And we launched a work from home program where we started coaching a group of young people. Like, this was the idea at that time. We started coaching a group of young people on how to write better. At that time, I remember we had about 700, 800 page views a month. So we thought, 700-800 log aa rahe hain blog pe. We launched this program, they're actively coming. At least 50 will apply. It's a great program. It's going to be a great program. And when we have, so it was me and another friend of mine. And when we have 50 people, we'll have like a choice. We'll select 10 each, and then we'll train them like anything, and then they're going to become our writers, and it'll be the best community blog ever. So in the first batch, only 2 people applied. So we obviously didn't have a choice. So we took them both in, and we started training them the best we could. By the 3rd batch, we started getting more regular applicants who want to learn how to blog about issues, and so on. By the 4th batch, we had almost 300-400 people applying for the program, because it had spread across colleges that there's this free program where they teach, how to write on issues really well, and they give really good feedback. So that caught on really, really fast, and that was one of the biggest things I will talk about later as a interesting point of promoting your blog to a large audience to really hook them on. But coming back to the point, a lot of people started coming to Youth Chaos just for the training program. And to read what their friends were writing. So the audience started growing slowly and steadily. Now by 2010, my college was coming to an end. We had about 10, 20, maximum 50,000 page views a month. And my friends got their jobs, and I was pretty much blogging alone. So there was this big choice, whether I go in for a regular journalism job or whether I take up blogging as a career. And is it really sustainable to take up blogging as a career? Because there were a lot of bloggers writing about technology and gadgets, which cater to a different market altogether. So you don't necessarily have to cater a technology blog to an Indian audience. You can still target it towards an American audience or a European audience, put ads and get better payments out of those ads, if you have great content like Amit said. But our content was specific, it was local, it was hyper-local. It talked about India's issues, it talks about Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, all of these hyper-local places and their issues. So how do we start monetizing a blog that caters to a local audience, does not really have enough American or European audience, and is a super niche blog? So at that time, I realized that, I only have 2 options, as I said, either take up a job or do this full time. If I take up a job, this won't be able to run properly, and this will probably die. And at that time, in 2010, there were nearly 50-60 people who had started contributing actively. And we had seen that there's a good chance that the numbers could multiply. And I always, like all of us, after college, we have like parental pressure, peer pressure, ye kar lo, wo kar lo, get a job, do like masters, even if you want to waste your time on blogging, maybe you'll have something else on the side. So I had similar pressures as well. And I'm very thankful my parents were fairly understanding. I told them, give me a year and let me figure this out. If I can't figure it out, I'll take up a job or do an MA. So I took an year off and gave all I could to build Awaaz and really get the right people involved, the right kind of content involved, the right kind of audience involved, and really spend a lot of time in understanding the audience, what they want to talk about, and how they want to talk about it. So I remember before 2010 we were doing Google Ads, which was paying us nothing. So at that time I also realized that one of the worst ideas to go about professional blogging is to put ads very early on, even when you don't have audience. So that's something I completely recommend against. Do not put ads if you want to take up blogging professionally. Build the product first and then think of monetizing it. So the year off I took, I removed all ads, made the website extremely clean, did the best thing I could, which was move from Blogger to WordPress. And I completely agree with what Amit said. It really makes the audience exponential in multiple ways. So I moved to WordPress, made it look very professional. My friends who got their job were obviously not there, but we had the internship program going. A lot of people had been trained by 2010, in fact by 2011. So what we did was, what I particularly did was take about 3-4 of them and get them to write more regularly, make them featured writers, editors, city editors, whatever I could, to have consistent content going. Once that started in, I focused a lot on how to really channelize the impact, because that was important. I was talking about all these issues in the world and getting young people to talk about these issues, but there was no real-time impact happening. Around the same time, something very interesting happened. So in 2010, it had been nearly 2.5 years since I was blogging, and I remember in 2010, like you just heard, I did almost 2,000 meetings and promoted my blog to get sponsorships, but none of them really turned in. And there were two major reasons. One was that blogging was not considered serious enough to be invested into. And second was that a 19-year-old, 20-year-old walking into the office of a big corporation was anyway patronized. So there was this big hurdle in front of me. You are young and you're wasting your time on this project. I'm not going to put my money in you because you never know, but you might run away with my money and you might just not do it properly and you will take it away and not come back. So I heard the most ridiculous of things in those meetings. And those are the same people, by the way, who were at that time preferring advertising in magazines and now are spending crores in online advertising. But anyway, so in 2010, 2011, I did almost 2,000 meetings. None of them turned in. And I started applying for awards, for grants in India. And one of the biggest and first boosts for Awaaz actually came from IndiBlogger. I don't know how many of you have been involved with IndiBlogger since the early days, but IndiBlogger it still does, but it used to have this fairly simple IndiBlogger of the month, where you put your blog up, and if you win, you get free WordPress themes. And it was this really nice place to be at. So we applied for that, and we got the IndiBlogger of the month. And that got Awaaz very well noticed in the entire bloggers community. So now bloggers had discovered Awaaz and they started writing actively. So I thought that if we can get one award, maybe apply for more India-specific awards, and we got none. So it was pretty demotivating. But something interesting happened in 2010. In August 2010, I got an email from a UN agency called the UN GATE, Global Alliance for ICT and Development. And they just wrote a very simple one-liner saying that this is really interesting work. We run this award called the World Summit Youth Award. Why don't you apply for it? There's no cash prize involved, but you might just have a chance to win. So I thought I've already applied for 10 of these awards, got nothing out of it. Might as well apply for the 11th one. And the worst case scenario is that I won't get it. So I applied and forgot. In September, I got an email from them saying that Awaaz had won the World Summit Youth Award. And it was the only first platform of its kind to have won this award from the whole of South Asia. So that was the biggest boost and biggest seal of validation it could have got in 2010. And I remember that was the first time I went outside India, got my passport made in a hurry, went to New York, met the best of the best bloggers in the world, met Ariana Huffington of Huffington Post, learned so much from these people. And I still remember on my 16-hour flight back, I was only making notes of whatever I had done in New York to just implement it back in India. So I came back, my perspective had changed completely because I had seen that people are noticing the kind of work we're doing. And I got more deeply involved with whatever I was doing. And a lot more people started discovering use cases, a lot more people started focusing on the kind of content we were building, but there was one big challenge even at that point of time. We had some 2-3 lakh page views a month, but there was no monetization happening. There was no money coming in. So my timeline was like getting shorter and shorter and I had really little time. By this time, 2011 brought in something which completely blew us all away. So in 2011, do you know what happened? The biggest thing for social media in the world, according to me, happened in 2011. Do you know what that was? Can anybody answer that? Sorry? No. No. In 2011, the biggest boost for social media. Not a platform. It's not a platform at all. The Arab Spring. Arab Spring. So the Arab Spring broke in 2011, in Tunisia first. And the way people were mobilizing in the Middle East, because the mainstream media was completely cut, newspapers were not being circulated, television was not being broadcasted, the only way people were mobilizing in 2011 was the internet. They were creating Facebook pages, they were creating Twitter accounts to find out where everybody is going, they were gathering all together. The mainstream media, in fact, was getting their news from the pictures and videos that people were tweeting and sharing on Facebook. Right? So that was the biggest boost that social media could have got in 2011. And that also came at a very interesting time because one of our readers, Pranay, he wrote to me and he said that his father was stuck in Libya. His father is stuck in Libya. He used to work in a construction company who contracted in Libya and he had gone to Libya. And the US had sent their ships to get their citizens back, so did the UK, but India did not, due to a lot of geopolitical reasons. And this guy's father is stuck in Tripoli. He has no clue where he is, dead or alive, and that's obviously a very disheartening moment for anybody. And you all know how difficult it is to reach out to the mainstream traditional media. So he obviously couldn't connect with a lot of news outlets. So he wrote to us, and he said that this is the issue, can you help me out? So this was the first time he wrote to us, he was a reader till then. So what I did was I asked him to write a blog about it and put it up on YouTube. Because he was very skeptical about it. He thought that, you know what, I really want to do something more than just a blog. So I thought, I told him, let's just take the first step and put up a blog on YouTube. So he did that. He wrote an open letter to the Ministry of External Affairs, described the entire issue, and that went live on the website. In about 3 hours, what happened was that our servers crashed badly. What had happened was that within those 3 hours alone, we had got 1 lakh page views just on that blog. So what I did was, I did not have the money to buy new servers, but I put that blog out in the public domain and I asked all bloggers possible to just copy and replicate that on their blogs. So that happened and that went completely viral. By the same night, I remember getting a call from CNN IBN that they want to do a story on this, Pranay and his father. So they did that. There was and CNN IBN also coordinated with us and they said, can you help us get more stories like this? So we did that. We got more and more stories within those 24 hours. And by the end of those 24 hours, that coverage was able to build so much pressure on the Indian government that before those 24 hours got over, a mandate was passed that in the next 24 hours we want our citizens back. So while I thought that it was about 10-15 stories that we had put out, I later learned that the Indian government actually brought back over 16,000 people back to the country, right? And for me, I think that was probably the biggest moment of Awaaz, where we were really able to silence a lot of skeptics about blogging. We were really able to tell people that, a simple blog could have a lot of impact on the way things are working. It could be a power center, it could be a platform for activism, it could be a platform for journalism, for so much more. And that had enough backing now. That whole point had enough backing now. So, from that moment till today, it's obviously been like a hell of a ride. In 2012, we got a UN grant to hire people. We hired people while I focused on the monetization bit. By the end of 2012, we were sustaining fairly well. Right now in 2014, we have almost 2.5 million unique readers a month. We have nearly a 10 people staff all across the country, majorly in Delhi though, who work on content. We have 25,000 people who are contributing to the website, 2,000 who write extremely actively. We get about 100 pieces a day on the website, and we put out just 10% of that, about 10 to 15 articles a day, which the editors go through. The internship program has grown humongously. We open it up for only 4 days and don't promote it at all, and we get nearly 700 applications. It runs throughout the year, every 8 weeks, and opens up once every 8 weeks. So that was the scale at which we are currently crowdsourcing on Youth Ki Awaaz. And from this entire, last 6.5 years, there have been 3 extremely interesting and very important points that I learned about blog promotion, which I'm going to share with you, and I really hope that you can learn from it and ask a lot of questions about it as well. So the first point was that when you're blogging and you want to blog like a professional, you want to take it up as a career, you need to think like an entrepreneur. Of course you have to think like a blogger, but you need to think like an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur does not give in to smaller issues of life. Somebody who's passionate about doing something does not really budge against anything that comes across them. So there was a point when I took the call of taking Youth Ki Awaaz seriously. That was when I had made the decision that the only thing I'm going to focus on now is this website, this blog, or whatever you want to call it. And I went all in. So the first point, as I said, was that think like an entrepreneur. Of course, content is the king, but at the same time, give yourself a deadline of by when you need to start monetizing your platform or your content and make it sustainable. And when I say sustainable, it doesn't mean that it should be sustainable for you alone. Think of hiring a staff. Think of hiring people who can run your platform. Because keeping everything central towards yourself is really not the best idea. Decentralizing, even in blogging, is probably the best thing that you can do to your blog to grow your community. The second thing, and another most important thing that I learned, was that you need to constantly innovate around content. So on the internet, content is changing as we speak. And there was a time when nobody in India knew about BuzzFeed. But right now, not only do we know about BuzzFeed, India has its own version of BuzzFeed. I don't know if you've heard of Scoopoo, but we have like a viral site in India. Upworthy suddenly started this trend of 10 things that will blow your mind and all of these viral titles, and started delivering repackaged content that was not going viral earlier, which is suddenly going viral now. And you never know till when this trend is going to stay. So the second biggest learning, which I think all of us need to have, is that when you're dealing with content, you need to constantly innovate. Your posts cannot be the same again and again and again. Your lists cannot be the same again and again and again. Because people have very short attention span. There is an information overload on social media. So all you have is that 20-second, 10-second, 5-second moment to really catch their attention and deliver the best content that you can. Right? And if you want to take blogging professionally, you don't have an option but to deliver the best content you can. And obviously you don't start writing the best content from day one. It develops over time. So give yourself that time space, but be a little hard on yourself when it comes to content and quality of content. Because a lot of times I come across bloggers who say they are professional bloggers, but they're actually not, and their content is not that great at all. And it's actually scraped from all over Mashable and 10 other websites and just put together and presented to people. So don't do that. If you don't have something unique to say, you rather not say it. But if you have a unique angle, make sure you say it the best way you can. Right? So always innovate around content. The third thing that I learned was that, of course, SEO is extremely important. But what is that one place where a huge chunk of our generation is actually residing? Can anybody answer that? Facebook. A huge part of our generation is actually spending a lot of time on Facebook. Facebook currently is probably one of the biggest news websites in the country, because a huge part of the news that we consume is through the links that our friends share or friends of friends share, and they travel to our timeline. And if they've traveled to our timeline, there's a reason why I want to click on it and I want to read it. So while you're building all the amazing content, don't forget the social media user. And don't forget one very important thing about the social media user. If I have 300 friends on Facebook or 1,000 friends on Facebook, make sure that you are not creating content for your friends. You need to create content for your friends of friends, for their friends, for people who don't know you, who don't know about your blog, who have no clue who you are, who have no idea of your brand. You need to target people who are completely unknown. You have never seen them. And you need to turn them into people who will actually visit your blog every single day or every week, whatever your frequency of posting is. Right? So always never create content for yourself or your friends. Because that's the best comfort zone you can be in and just stay stagnant. Always create content for people who are not your friends or not yourself. Right? And there was another point that I realized, which was that as bloggers, a lot of time what we focus on is our blog, the way it looks, the way it feels, the way content is displayed, so on and so forth, which is extremely important. But another very important thing is analyzing user behavior on your blog. Understanding why somebody comes to your blog and why they do what they do on your blog. There are a ton of tools. Google Analytics is obviously there. There's Crazy Egg. There's so much more that can really help you understand why people do what they do on your blog. Which should be the center of, like that data should be what should drive your business. If you know what data you can achieve from what people are doing on your blog, I think you've really hit it fairly well with your audience. And then start working around your audience, not around yourself. So as bloggers, again, get out of the whole idea that you're blogging, you're this really, genius person. Of course you are. You know that. Everybody knows that. But for your audience, they should feel like they are the owners. They are the stakeholders. They are the ones who own your content. They are the ones who are going to share your content. They are the ones who subscribe on the email list and ask others to subscribe. They are the ones who are building the blog for. So spend enough time in really understanding them really well, as much as you can. Do surveys, understand through analytics, as I just said, but spend a quality amount of time understanding them. And there are, if you just Google Harvard format of psychology behavior analysis, you will find these very well-tabled charts of how people understand user behaviors on websites. You can just pick one of those and use that and really spend some time on understanding what your users are doing. So it doesn't matter if you have 2 million pages or 1,000 page views. If you really understand those 1,000 people well, I think you can scale up fairly fast. And the last part about blog promotion, I've already talked about Facebook. And I'll talk a little about Twitter as well. But a large part of your Facebook growth and your Twitter growth should always be organic. It's always best to let people discover your page rather than asking them to go and like your page, because if they like it because they are like your friend, they're never going to share your content, they're never going to read your content. So make sure that your growth on Facebook and Twitter is as organic as possible. And another thing, don't focus all your energies on your Facebook page. So we get 2.5 million readers a month, but our Facebook page only has about 150,000 people, which is far from the 2.5 million number. Right? So how does that number actually get achieved? Because people don't come to our Facebook page and discover content. They come to our website and discover content. They share it, and through the sharing process, the millions of people come. So focus on creating content that can be shared on these social platforms. That can be free of jargon. That can be just for the common person to learn a lot from you. And that's how you can create an authoritative power blog as well. So these were like the 3-4 crucial points about promoting a blog, which I learned through the process of Awaaz. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.